In a short while, we're going to have Professor Alan Dershowitz with us. And then later on, Waleed Faris. Waleed will be discussing the meetings with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia at the White House. And Alan will get a choice of what he wants to discuss. The whole situation with Tucker Carlson and Fuentes, and how, what does it mean with the First Amendment? Because a lot of people are very confused about how the First Amendment figures into that, as they are with Epstein. Meaning, why would you be reluctant to release all of the names, other than, you feel like you're involved, or and there is an extraordinarily important reason for not doing it that I had to face very, very often as a U.S. attorney, and what you release and what you don't release. So let Alan talk about either one of them, because I've heard him on television being eloquent about both. First, let me tell you, in terms of what happened with Saudi Arabia, we approved the sale of the F-35 jets, which was agreed to by Israel. Now, you should know that Saudi Arabia is rich, but it's not as rich as it used to be. I don't know what that means, but the Wall Street Journal today did a pretty good analysis of the fact that their deficit is now, about 25% higher than it was just 4 years ago. And their investments have gone down as the price of oil goes down, which, of course, on the other end of the world is pretty helpful to us in pushing Russia. Now, this Crown Prince, MBM, Mohammed bin Salman, has been trying from day one to modernize the country. One of those ways in modernizing the country is to try to make it not be a one-horse pony like Russia is, dependent just on oil. And he's trying to develop other industries with some success and some failures. And that's where Trump becomes so valuable to them. And where part of what he has always wanted to do, which is of enormous importance to us, I would say he would have agreed to the Abraham Accords 4 years ago if they didn't have a fear of the street, if they didn't have a fear of the extremists that populate their country. It is true that something like 65% of Saudi Arabia opposes the Abraham Accords, but it isn't the opposition. It's the murderers, who organized murder, the terrorists, the Islamic extremist terrorists, who would use it as an excuse to do what they'd like to do, which is to overthrow the royal family. Now, they've got their own self-interest in mind, but we have ours too. We are, despite whatever happened on 9/11, and I'm very, very upset and angry about that and want to see that pursued. But despite what happened on 9/11, going forward and into the future, we're better off with the royal family than what would come after it. There isn't a moderate government that's seeking to overthrow them. The Sunni worst terrorist elements, similar to bin Laden, who was an enemy of the royal family. So it is complicated, and I think Waleed can take you through that. I spent some time in the earlier show on all of the issues that are coming up on the assassination of the president, the attempt to assassinate the president. They're picking on the one at Butler. You could do the same thing with the one in West Palm Beach, but Crooks is a pretty good target. The day after the assassination attempt, the FBI very boldly lied completely by conducting a press conference and telling everyone they haven't had time to investigate the things that were being asked of them. And then concluding by being asked, well, is there any evidence of anybody else involved or any government? No, definitively no. Well, of course, they couldn't have known that. If they didn't know any affirmative facts, how do they prove the negative?
Right.
the man who said that had to be lying, because he had the foggiest idea if there were anybody else involved, or not less than 24 hours later. And when you look at the evidence that we'll go over later, there's a lot of suggestions that other people were involved, none of which have been given, all of which have been hidden to you, and things that Christopher Wray and his underlings have testified falsely against. I'm assuming they're going to be prosecuted. There's also a somewhat disturbing, but I won't make too much of this other than maybe not paying attention, and this comes from my friend Miranda Devine, that the present FBI is not being particularly responsive to the things that are being asked for, which I find to be true even in my own case. I can't get the affidavits they made up that justified them in breaking into my apartment and my law office and my security business, which had to have probable cause. And then a year and a half later, they wrote a letter to the grand jury saying they had no probable cause. So since then, I've wanted to see it. I knew I could see the Biden people keeping it from me. I don't know why they're keeping it from me. And I have Christina Bob as my lawyer, so I should be okay. Right. Russian sanctions are hitting really, really hard at this point. In the last couple of weeks, we've taken the strongest action against them since the invasion. And in a way, it has an impact on the price of oil. It's bringing it down. But it's in our interest for the price of oil to go down because Russia depends completely on oil. So that might be an interesting conversation that we're probably not going to get to join in between MBM and the president. Yeah. And meanwhile, just in case I forget, I won't, but just in case, there is a corruption scandal in Ukraine that is going from one degree of complexity to another, and it's beginning to go around Zelensky's neck. Yeah. It turns out that there are a group of scandals. They all involve kickbacks in the energy industry, which is exactly what the Biden scandal was about, right? It was a bribe in the energy industry by, at that time, the biggest energy company and the biggest energy crook, Zlochevsky, to the Biden family. This is, for some reason, called a golden toilet scam. And at least two of the people arrested so far and charged with what might be well over $100 million in kickbacks and bribes are close friends and associates of little Zelensky. Timur Mendik was the co-founder of the entertainment company that made millions for little Zelensky, and called Zvartal 95. As far as we can tell, he continues to be. As far as we can tell, Zelensky continues to be a partner. As far as we can tell, they live in the same apartment building where millions and millions of dollars were coming in to Mr. Mendik. So Mr. Mendik, his partner, was getting kickbacks for contracts awarded by the government of Zelensky. And Zelensky was a couple of floors above him, I assume. And the money was in his apartment. We're getting it awful close, aren't we, Ted? We just need an elevator now. Yeah. That apartment where Mendik was found to have bags of cash, which gave the probe its nickname because it has golden toilets. Timur has an apartment with golden toilets that was the same building as Zelensky's. They were introduced many years ago and were running the business. Another Zelensky associate named Deputy Prime Minister Oleg Chernyshov, who was also a close family friend, and he was in the government up until 2019, has been accused also of taking bribes. And it has something to do with building housing complexes. But the details in that are somewhat less Some people say, as Fox reports, that Zelensky was very aware of these schemes and that he approved them. There's also a suspicion that money ended up in accounts abroad that benefited Zelensky and is in a circle. He's distanced himself from this by having the Anti-Corruption Bureau investigate it, which is really very encouraging, I guess, meant to be. Not encouraging to me because the Anti-Corruption Bureau, when I was investigating Ukraine, was more corrupt than the rest of the Ukraine. It was put together by Soros to clear his company so he could do whatever the hell he wanted. He did this in several Eastern European countries. Soros did. And one of the first group of cases that had to be dropped as part of the Biden bribe was a case against Soros's company. I've always wondered if I could have done further investigation, if that was part of the deal also. But it happened at exactly the same time. Remember, Zelensky's sitting on top of all this. He's got all this information. He's got the checks. He's got the wires that go from fictitious company to fictitious company to fictitious company and end up in the hands of numerous political officials. He also has an unbelievable case against his predecessor, Poroshenko, for taking bribes in amounts of money that would stun you. The evidence is witness, documentary, video, audio. The reason his predecessor was defeated 70-30 is everyone in Ukraine knew he was the biggest crook in Ukraine. Zelensky, of course, now has the records proving if that's true and has done nothing with them. There are also any number of others. So maybe not the right time to do it. But when this war is over, when it is over, how about we try to get that money back and make all those oligarchs poor by allowing the Ukrainian people to eat? And also how much money, there's also evidence in this investigation of money diverted from the war, which of course I've been telling you from the beginning.
Right.
From the very, very beginning, the first time Biden resisted an accounting on the billions he was giving them, I said, this is all crooked money. You have no idea how much they're using for arms and how much they're not. That's the reason Trump changed it. And also that's the reason for the hostility towards Zelensky when he first came in. Hard to meet with a guy that's such a big crook and be nice to him. Even if you sympathize with his cause, you'd say to yourself, gee, wouldn't it be so much better if the Ukrainian people were in the hands of a decent, honest man? But that's who has been given to us, and therefore we got to work with him because Putin's worse.
Right.
Do we have our guest yet? Okay.
We're just minutes away from our first guest.
So Trump is cracking down on drugs in a way that should have been done for a very, very long time. He's taken out the boats to bring the drugs to the United States. Now you say, well, that's not the only way they bring drugs to. That's not the only way they do it. Why is he hitting those boats? That's so bad in the seas and all. Yeah, it's a lot better that we have 700-800 million kids die of fentanyl, right? That's better. Of course we can hit the boats. They're bringing things in to violate the laws of the United States to kill our young people. Right. They've been sufficiently warned not to do it. And yes, it is one of the ways they do it. They also do it by land. You checked last time how tight our borders are. We're doing it's not as if we're not doing everything we can to have them bring it in by land, huh? We're trying to choke the drug trade. You hit it at every place. There's also something dramatic about that in the sense that, part of law enforcement is deterrence. Part of it is shaking people up so they don't commit crimes. When you see that, when you see the USS Ford and you're puny little Venezuela, I think the USS Ford all by itself could defeat Venezuela. I'm not sure we need anything else. They know that.
Right.
Yeah, of course he's trying to encourage him to get on his ass and go to some place that like Spain. Spain's a big communist country. They'd take him. They don't even want to contribute to NATO. I don't know when the hell we're going to throw him out.
Right.
They'd probably let him live there like a billionaire, like Arafat's wife lives like a billionaire in the south of France.
Right.
All that money meant for her people, who many of whom have died of starvation because they didn't get it, but it doesn't bother her or the French. But will he invade? Don't think so. Would he bomb? Maybe. Maybe. Just maybe. And is it driving Colombia crazy? Is it having a big impact inside South America? So Trump is hated. Gee, it didn't look that way in Chile when the right-wing parties won the biggest vote they've ever won in Chile. And a combination of them almost assures that the next president will be a Trump-supporting right-winger. And Chile is a country that could go either way and go right or left. Probably not communist. They're too smart and too wealthy. And per capita, maybe the wealthiest country in Latin South America. Now, shouldn't be Venezuela, Brazil, because of the natural resources. Might be the Argentina, Colombia, in spite of the fact that they have a terrible president now who is extremely crooked. Colombia kind of wins on the most modern and probably the best organized government, and definitely something that could pass for an honest police department. And therefore, it's a wonderful place to do business. It's not as big. It doesn't have quite the resources that Venezuela or Argentina has, but they have always been more volatile, politically volatile, to the point of dictatorship. Whereas Colombia, although it's had dictators, and the one right now is equivalent of a dictator and a massive dope, but there's almost every indication he can be voted out next year. And Colombia has spent more of the last 30 years being right wing than left wing. So this is an aberration. You also can't discount that Trump is doing this to cut out the cancer of the Chinese in South America. I mean, we're just not going to let them be there. It will take their ambitions to surpass us down to levels at which we can, push them around a little more, which is what we have to do. So I think this operation is a very, very good one, a very gutsy one. I can't see any other American president doing this, and I think the little cowards and sissy boys who are opposing it are exactly that. And thank God they don't have to be the ones to be protecting my family.
We're just waiting on our guest here.
So Trump is spending so much time on prices. I really thought his visit to McDonald's yesterday afternoon, or almost last night, was hilarious. We got any pictures of that? I mean, he is a former server.
Well, when we'll get to that, this actually will buy me some time to get those pictures ready, because we're just awaiting the thumbs up here from the one and only Professor Alan Dershowitz. We'll wait to get the thumbs up, make sure he's in position and ready to go. So we'll bring him on. It looks like he's right about ready. And you'll have to tell us, Mayor, about your time with him at Harvard.
We can do that, but I really have current things that I want to talk to him about.
Yeah, of course.
We can do a pod if he's willing. I'd love to do a podcast.
I can give us more time here. Yeah. So let's bring him on. I think we're ready to go. Without further ado, Professor Alan Dershowitz.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
How are you? Just for you, I'm wearing my Brooklyn Dodger ring from born. This is Jackie Robinson's first year.
Oh, I have a Jackie Robinson memorial watch.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
of course, on September 11, I was heading to a breakfast to raise money for the Jackie Robinson Pee Wee Reese statue.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
I helped Mrs. Reese and Mrs. Robinson to get out of City Hall because they were trapped there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Yankee fan from those days, but I have the same, probably not the same, but I have a very, very strong emotion about that. I renamed the highway for Jackie Robinson.
Yeah. Well,
I almost feel like, they were part of my childhood too.
yeah, I knew you were a Yankee fan because anybody who grew up in Brooklyn and was a Yankee fan is going to be a prosecutor. Dodgers become defense attorneys. He always defended the underdog. All of the years I lived in Brooklyn, we always lost to the Yankees. Usually,
One time.
first year in college, my first year at Brooklyn College,
Right.
I would no longer watch baseball. I was going to become a good student. And that year, in September, the Brooklyn Dodgers beat the Yankees.
Yeah, 55, right?
Padres game 7, right? With Sandy Koufax sitting on the bench because he was a bonus baby. And in those days, if you were a bonus baby, they couldn't send you to the minor leagues. So he spent his first couple of years, 55 and 56, throwing balls into the stands. He was terrible.
He had control problems.
He had control problems.
But everybody assured you he'd be a great pitcher.
No.
No. I seem to know that from my Dodger fan friends that he was going to be a great pitcher.
Well,
nope.
All of us Jews in Brooklyn hoped he would be a great pitcher. And he was a great basketball player. He used to and he dunk righty and lefty. But when we were kids, we didn't know he was a baseball player. He went to the University of Cincinnati on a basketball scholarship. And then his coach said, in the offseason, throw a ball a little bit to keep in shape. And boy, did he throw a ball.
Alan, we have to do a podcast. We're like the Odd Couple.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we remain friends, even though we had some very contentious cases. We still remain friends.
I will never forget.
There was no reason not to be a friend. You were an honest guy arguing your position, which I vehemently disagreed with. And I think you knew I was an honest guy who was arguing a position that you vehemently disagreed with.
I'll never forget the first case I ever did against you. I won. And then the second case you won. So we were even. The first case was the Jewish Defense League case.
Yes.
Second case was Edmund Rosner.
Yep, boy, that brings back memories. Oh, yeah. Wow.
I'm
also even coming to your class and discussing the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. And now watching you, your explanation the other day on the complexity of just releasing everybody, Epstein, every name, was so brilliant and so necessary. And I have to tell you, courageous, Alan.
Well,
because they did a terrible thing to you on that. And you might want to, you know what you would be advised if you were a politician? Just keep your mouth shut because people are going to start raising it again. But because you're innocent and because you've always been courageous, you're willing to speak up to protect other people. It's amazing.
Again, because there's something that's going on in Congress, which is one of the most dangerous things I've heard since McCarthyism. There are a bunch of congressmen and senators and lawyers who are now saying, we're going to release the names of all people who have been accused, and we're going to do it on the floor of the Senate and the House so that nobody can sue us. And that means you can name innocent people, and there's no recourse if the names are distributed on the floor of the House and the Senate because of the debate clause. That's exactly what Joe McCarthy used to do. Joe McCarthy used to stand up.
Of course.
I have a list of communists, and he would read these names of innocent people, and some were guilty, but innocent people. And then when somebody tried to sue him, they would say, no. I read it from the floor of the Senate, and I'm immune from being sued. So I'm very worried. I care deeply about real victims, people who are real victims, and they should get justice.
Me too.
Yeah.
But I also realize, having handled all kinds of cases, including abuse of young children, how an innocent person can get charged, and no matter you find them not guilty, they're ruined for the rest of their lives.
Look, I wrote a book about it called Guilt by
Yes,
Accusation.
yes.
Somebody, they are deemed guilty today, particularly. And that's why, I'll give you an example. So today there was a big press conference, and one of the people discussed in the press conference is a woman named Farmer. And she accused Jews, only Jews, of assaulting her. And then we found, after we did an investigation, here's what she said. I have a hard time with the Jewish people. All the Jewish people I met are pedophiles who run the world economy. They believe in Jewish supremacy. And then she essentially denied the Holocaust. So when you have a woman like that accusing Jewish people, and you don't disclose the fact that she has a history of anti-Semitism, and that's what happened at the press conference today. Everybody was talking about how horrible it was that this woman was abused, and nobody mentioned that she thinks that the Jews run the economy and run the world, and they're all pedophiles. So you have to have both sides. You know that, or I know that as a lawyer, but average people out there don't necessarily believe that.
Yeah, I've been worried about that since this began. Also, I saw you discussing the Tucker Carlson interview of Fuentes, including your sensitivity to the First Amendment. But the First Amendment, tell me if I'm wrong, if Fuentes wanted to come on my show, I don't have a First Amendment obligation to put him on.
Of course not.
I'll put people on who disagree with me.
Sure.
But I'm not going to put people on where I make my own judgment that they're evil.
Well, I have rules.
Or if I did, I'd put them on and I'd make them cry and confess like I did Congressman Podell.
Guilty in the middle of
I keep saying if he wants to come and do my podcast, if I don't have him crying and confessing by the end, I will then definitely retire.
Okay, I got a few people I'd love to put up. Yes. No, I agree with you. I don't debate Holocaust deniers. I just won't give them the.
Yeah, how can you
breathe? I don't want people to hear that side of the argument of Holocaust denial. I lost members of my family in the Holocaust. I know what happened.
Yeah, so, I argued 2 cases involving Maikovskis and Linas for expulsion from the United States. And in the Maikovskis case, the guy who opposed me within the Reagan administration was Buchanan.
Yeah.
For 2.5 straight years. And President Reagan called Attorney General Smith and said that he wanted me to argue the case personally because he didn't people think that Reagan liked Buchanan. I think Reagan had him there because he had to, because he had me argue that case so he would make sure we would win.
The greatest that episode was Bill Buckley. Bill, who was a great conservative, he stood up to Pat Buchanan when Buchanan was at the height of his popularity. Remember, he was on CNN. He had that show. I was on it several times. And then he becomes a Holocaust denier, and he becomes, a real anti-Semite. And Bill Buckley called him on it. Now, if I called him on it, it wouldn't have made any impact.
Yes.
Say that what he has said and done, I cannot defend him against charges that it's amount to anti-Semitism. And what that did is it saved the Republican Party, because the Republican Party was able to distance themselves from him. And now I'd like to see some conservatives come forward and save the Republican Party from Tucker Carlson, save the Republican Party from Fuentes.
Well, not enough, but a few have. And I have to say one thing, and this is a terrible defense, more than you would see in the Democrat Party.
Oh, there's no question the Republicans are better than Democrats.
I mean, their
current hero is really Ted Cruz, my former.
But
Ted,
was he your student? Wasn't he your student?
My student. He came into my class the first day. He's like right out of Princeton, comes into my class the first day with his hand up, his right hand up. He already was questioning me before I said a word. And he's whole semester challenging everything I said, which I loved, as you know, because you saw me teach. I love to have confidence and challenge, and Ted was fantastic.
Before all of this change took place with a lot of your people think you're a conservative now, but you're not. You are exact whatever the hell you are, conservative, liberal. You're the same Alan Dershowitz that I used to argue with all the time. However, before the changes took place, where they won't talk to you in Martha's Vineyard, you told me that Cruz was one of the brightest students you taught, even though you disagree with him completely.
That's why he was such a good student, because I didn't have to be the devil's advocate. He was the devil. And he would always present the opposite point of view. The students didn't like him, but I loved him. I thought he was a terrific.
You told me that a long time ago. Gosh, I mean, when he first appeared running for the Senate, you told me that.
And then I had another guy named Jamie Raskin in my class. Always disagreed with me from the left. And it's fun to have that. Then I had Elena Kagan in my class. And, I've had so many interesting students. Jeffrey Toobin, I've had so many good students. And
I'm not going to ask you anything about Jeffrey Toobin, what he was doing in class. I won't ask you what he was doing in class.
You used to help me teach. You came to the class and helped me present. You were a great teacher. Yeah.
Do you so on this thing with not Epstein, with Fuentes and Tucker, what do we do? I'm going to do a podcast on presenting everything Epstein has, not Epstein, I keep calling him Epstein, everything Fuentes has said that I have. I went through it the other night. I was like punching the screen. I mean, even in the thing with Tucker, he says, I like Stalin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, he has said that before. I found it where he said it before. Said it to a bunch of very impressionable young girls. He said he liked Stalin and why he liked Stalin.
But then Carlson gets on the radio on his thing, and he says that the great German minister, Niemeyer, or whatever, the man who tried to kill Hitler, he said he was wrong, and Hitler, he basically...
What was it, Bonhoeffer?
Yeah, Bonhoeffer. Yeah.
Yeah. The man is, to me, I think the Catholic Church, he's a Protestant. They should make him a saint.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I've read a lot about him, and it's the one thing I know independently a lot about, because I must have spent 3 days in Israel and 4 days in Berlin when I had those two cases. And briefly, one of them had a concentration. They were both non-German, and they were seeking entry into the SS. So they made them heads of concentration camps. Do you know, one of them, his lawyer defended him. It was in front of Judge Michelin. His lawyer defended him, a Jewish guy, in front of Judge Michelin. He said, I can't remember if it was 12,000. One had 12,000, one had 22,000. This guy says he exaggerated those numbers. He always exaggerated the numbers of people executed so he'd get credit with the SS. The judge looked at him and said, you want me to give credit for that? You want me to give credit for that?
Produce the guidelines.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was only 8 million.
12,000. Yeah. Look, just going back to growing up, it was so great to grow up for me in Brooklyn, because half of my friends were Sicilians, were from Italy, mostly from southern Italy, Sicilians, and the southern Italians and the Jews got along like brothers and sisters. We were like the same group. Our mothers and grandmothers would sit on the porch and on the rocking chairs.
Of course, it was the same.
Children not following the tradition. It was like we were part of the same group. And I think the same thing is happening today. Look at Mamdani. Look, more Jews voted for Mamdani than Italian Americans did. The Italian Americans were almost universally against Mamdani. The Jews, 33% of those idiots voted for him. And Trump was right when he said any Jew who votes for Mamdani is an idiot. He's a jerk. And
but you do have that percentage of Jewish people, which I learned really well when I ran for mayor, that you never get it. They hate Israel. They're not as if they support Israel and they're voting for. They hate Israel.
Hate Israel.
And they hate being Jewish.
Yeah. And there are two groups. One very, very orthodox called the Neturei Karta, or the Satma.
Haven't a lot of them disappeared, though?
No, they're still there, though.
They are, huh?
But extreme right-wing Jewish anti-Israel. And then there's the left, the hard left, which, of course, follows the Communist Party. These people were all pro-Israel until the Soviet Union turned against Israel. The minute the Soviet Union turned against Israel in the early 1960s, all the communists, all the socialists, all the hard left people suddenly on a dime turned against Israel, and they still stick to that. And many of them are on college campuses today. Many of them are teachers and professors, and they're very, very anti-Israel.
Ronald Reagan told me one time, and it always has been my guiding principle with Israel, our relationship with Israel, or my relationship with Israel, is not governed by domestic politics, because we have a different and more important relationship with them, national security. And they're one of our best friends. People have very few best friends in life, very few nations. I can think of about 2-3 nations that I can trust. Israel's right at the top. So if they need something, I'm there for them. I can't tell you how often they've been there for us, and nobody knows about it.
You're beloved in Israel. You've always been beloved in Israel. Even before 9/11, you've always been beloved in Israel. When you were the mayor of New York, and going back, you've always had that support from Israel, because they know who you supported. And so, and that's why I've always supported you. We've disagreed. Side. And
Alan, how do we get out of this? You're so wise about these things. What do we do? In my case, it's very narrow. What do I do to save the Republican Party? It was going in such a great direction until this got unleashed. And it's really been unleashed below us for about 5. It's been going on for about 8 or 10 years, but nobody's been paying attention to it. Now it's come out into the open. Maybe that's better. Maybe it's better that we can fight it.
I think we have to move the Republican Party and the Democratic Party more to the center. Americans are centrists. That's why you, as a Republican, could win mayor of New York, which is an overwhelmingly Democratic.
100%, yeah.
And I think that the Republicans lose when they move hard to the right. The Democrats lose when they move hard to the left. The Republicans have done a much better job in distancing themselves from the extremists than the Democrats who voted for Mondami. Remember, no Republican right-wing anti-Semite, as far as I know, has won elections. They've been popular in the media. They've been, whereas Democrats win elections. We see it with Mondami, the mayor of Seattle now, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in other places. I'm hoping that, Elise Stefanik brings New York back to the Republican fold when she runs for governor, because I think she has a good shot. I don't think that people like AOC could win a statewide election.
Right.
Statewide election. They certainly can't win national elections. As long as that's true, I have faith in, both the Republican Party and in America. If there ever comes a time when a person like AOC could win a statewide or a national election, then I really start worrying.
Well, I agree with you, and I hope I'm not missing something that's going on bigger. But I thought in a way that Mondami's election was better than even Cuomo, in the sense that we get to face it. We now get to face the reality, and we'll find out who we are. And if you look at the history of New York City, we've elected Republicans and independents only when we've been desperate. I was the 4th Republican elected in 100 years.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah.
And Lincoln lost New York City twice.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
New Yorkers have a history of showing bad judgment about
about baseball teams. What you were going to say. Alan, I love you. You're doing a great job for America. I mean, you've always done a great job. The last 10 years, you've been like a light in the darkness. So thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Because
we got to do a long form one.
I'm only 87, so I hope I have a few more years yet.
You do. That's why I have to listen to you.
Yeah, me too.
God bless you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Today we have to do a show in which we go back and compare the old Yankees and the old Dodgers.
I'm happy to do it.
Some terrific memories. And
how about Sandy Amorose being put in the inning before as a left-hander, and he catches Yogi Berra's bubble? That would have tied the game.
I always stump my friends when I ask them, name the last time 2 Italian Americans were catchers.
I know for sure.
But
Roy Campanella, right?
Everybody misses Roy Campanella.
Campy.
Campy. What a great player he was. And
my mother's family was Dodger fans. My father's family were the Yankee fans. And I lived in the same home with two cousins who were Dodger fans. And her hero was Gil Hodges.
Yeah.
She just loved Gil Hodges. And so I was very, very happy to help Mrs. Hodges in the big effort to get him in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, that was such
now, all of a sudden, now my cousin likes me. She's a year old.
We knew where Gil Hodges lived. And we used to, with our bike, go into
sure.
the house, hoping maybe we'd catch a glimpse of him. We never did.
Did he actually take when they had a trolley car? Did he actually take the trolley car to work?
Well, that's how the name of the Dodgers got to be, the Brooklyn Trolley Dodgers. That was their original name, Trolley Dodgers. They would run and avoid being hit by the trolleys.
Alan, thank you.
Be well. Take care.
Yeah, great job. Isn't he remarkable? Wow.
Yeah, he's one of a kind.
I'll tell you what it demonstrates. Maybe this isn't true. I'm gonna make a wrong statement, but I'm gonna say it anyway. These really, really brilliant people are very, very multifaceted. Look at how much he knows about baseball, and look how much.
Right.
Yeah, we could do this with music. We could do it with other things. But then again, there are these geniuses that only know about one. There is a form of genius where
right.
they don't know,
almost antisocial.
They couldn't tell you who the president was.
Yeah. Right.
Like maybe a great sculptor.
Right. Well, Alan Dershowitz, definitely somebody most Americans know.
But those are the ones you probably
legal.
wouldn't get to meet because those are the ones that are very brilliant and very antisocial.
Right. I think what makes him such a good professor, part of it is his ability, he's a people person. He obviously loves people. And, I've watched him for years across the network.
You can tell he's a great teacher because on television, he has that ability that's so necessary. So necessary for a television analyst.
He's been on all the networks.
More than a reporter, but from an analyst, he made complex things simple.
Right.
So for the students who are sort of for the first time dealing with the complexities of constitutional law, he makes it simple. And I always observed, even though he had a strong prejudice, he would argue the other side of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that you did get an opportunity to, because if you don't produce a lawyer,
right?
You can't teach law by lecturing and saying this is the rule,
mm-hmm.
because with a few exceptions, there's really no such thing as a rule that isn't arguable, debatable. You may be called upon as a lawyer to challenge something that's been in existence for 200 years, but you want to get the court to overturn it.
Right.
That's perfectly legitimate. And that's what a lawyer does. You don't go to your lawyer unless some rule is giving you a problem.
Right.
So you're either going to show how you comply with the rule, or you're going to show that the rule is illegal, unconstitutional.
The answer is often, it depends when you ask a lawyer.
Well, it always does.
It's such and such legal, right?
A lawyer will always say, I can't tell you the result, because the lawyer's not in charge of the result.
Right.
The lawyer's in charge of making the best possible argument to get you the result.
Yeah.
But he's not like a surgeon is not in charge of your life. God is. I mean, a surgeon will go in and do one of these complex operations and succeed, and everybody, next time he won't, because we don't live forever. And not everybody agrees. And within the system, there's also corruption, which we're only seeming to acknowledge now, but it's always been there. The New York court system has been this corrupt for about 160, 170 years. And the disgusting, horrible, so-called elite lawyers in New York have permitted it because it doesn't affect them too much, or they'll play with it.
Right.
So do we need to take a break?
We should take our break now because as we continue here, we have
a few more things to cover.
We have additional guests on this very fast-paced Tuesday.
But that argues for a podcast with Alan for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how long that'll be, 12, 13 hours or something. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor Live, and following up on the interview with Alan, I see that Larry Summers, who was the president of Harvard and also a top official in both the Obama and Clinton administrations, he was Secretary of the Treasury in one, and he was the head national economic, he was head economic advisor in the other, and then other positions as well. There were revealed a group of, you would have to regard as compromising emails back and forth, where the gist of them were that Summers was getting romantic advice from Epstein. And it was in the 2018, 2019 period, after Epstein had already been identified as a child predator, had been designated as such, and had what many people believe, including me, was a very, very light sentence. But still, he was identified as having that problem. And Summers is a smart enough man to know that that problem doesn't go away. And it was at that point that many, many people broke off with him and would have nothing to do with him.
Right.
But Summers was his bosom buddy after that period, going to his home. I think, but I could be wrong, so don't take this, going to the island, and then writing to him, how do I get around this girl? What do I do? She doesn't seem to like me. So Summers was now basically thrown out of Harvard, thrown out.
Yeah.
Now, they've known this for a long time and didn't throw him out. It's only when the shit hit the fan that they throw him out. And I don't know, maybe he should be thrown out. But I don't know if he's guilty.
Right.
I mean, if you took this one, let me say, this is one, I don't know that he's guilty. I do have a very strong instinct about it. And at some other point when we're not making this point, I'll tell you what my instinct is. I think you probably know.
Mm-hmm.
But it does illustrate the danger, right? The guy has been thrown out of his job, completely discredited, and all we have are a bunch of reports You put this fact together, that fact together, this fact together, and here's what you have to say. He must have known. Now, must have known can work if the circumstantial evidence is overpowering, really powerful. Sometimes circumstantial evidence can be better than direct evidence, but this isn't. This is all over the place. If you wanted to say, is it more likely than not? You might be able to say that. It's more likely than not that he knew something because of the close proximity, right? If it doesn't prove it. And then you think there are a lot of other people less connected with him, right? Look what they were doing with the president until he was definitively exonerated by the one person that can do it, the young lady who was the victim, the biggest victim, had no reason to lie, committed suicide, and left behind a record that is replete with very, very credible statements that Trump didn't do anything wrong except treat her nice, including an attempt to lead her where a slimy lawyer said, when did Trump flirt with you? To which she answered immediately, he never did. Very definitively. I'm actually glad that her lawyer didn't object, because normally a really good lawyer, I don't know who her lawyer was, so don't get angry at me, would say, objection, it assumes a fact that hasn't been admitted or proven. That's the way you protect your witness against getting misled. But there's nothing at all that suggests that Trump flirted with it. And he said it as if it was a fact. When did Trump first flirt with you? And as I said, a lawyer would often object to kind of get their person to focus on. There's no proof here of this. Lawyer didn't do that. Maybe a lawyer didn't have time. She just, all we have is the written transcript, but it looks like it was a pretty hasty response. He never did it. And she was somewhat grateful that he sided with her because there was a big dispute, and her father was. Now there's a problem with the family because Trump has said that there are several reasons why he broke off so definitively with Epstein. One is the one that I know for sure is a matter of record with witnesses, and that is that his staff came to him and said that Epstein was becoming a real problem by being inappropriate and abusive to many of the girls, including Virginia Giuffre when she was a teenager, I guess, about 18. And then he just fired him. Threw him out of Mar-a-Lago, and he threw him out of the golf course. Now, in one of his lying emails, he says he was never a member of either. What's a matter of record? I've actually seen the records. Somewhere I have the file. I put it all together just in case they tried to frame Trump, as they were doing with everything else. She definitely worked there, and he was definitely a member. And we could probably produce numerous witnesses because a lot of people didn't like him. So when Trump threw him out, it was kind of popular. But this is way back in 2007. As far as I know, Trump has never seen him since then. Like these other people, after he got in trouble and was identified as a sexual predator and was labeled as a sexual predator, they continued to have meetings with him. The Democrats, and I don't think he ever gave money to a Republican, the Democrats continued to take money from him. And during the questioning of Trump, of Michael Cohen, when he was trying to frame Trump, Epstein was coaching Michael Cohen.
Right.
Which shows you how much he hated Trump, because Trump made a big public display of throwing him out. So this whole attempt to frame Trump with little innuendos, and they might have been able to pull this along for a long time if they hadn't gone and done the one thing that was so dramatic it just blew up.
Right.
They just doctored they doctored a was it an email
Which
or a text?
the doctored one?
The doctor one that said that he is spending a lot of time with victim.
Oh yeah, email.
Okay. So the victim was Giuffre, Giuffre,
Yeah.
and they covered it up
Yep.
because they knew that the next step is they'd go look at what Giuffre had said about it.
Yep.
And there's a list there's a pile of papers about this big, and then videotapes that show that she denied it. Didn't deny it. It's quite credible. I mean, it just never happened. And that's what blew up in their face. So now they're trying to squirm around and see what else they can do. And what is actually happening is you're finding out the actual truth as I know it, which is that a lot of names are going to come out. Some of those people are going to be squirmy, horrible, disgusting pedophiles and predators. Some of them are going to be somewhat more normal, using him as a pimp for young but legal age. And some of them are going to be completely innocent that used him as a financial advisor because he led several lives. And the life of being a financial advisor, he kept that other stuff out of it because he was at a very high level. The banks wouldn't have dealt with him.
Right.
So there were a lot of people that spent time with him that just didn't know. Now, it is going to turn out, because he was such a committed contributor to the Democrat Party, that most of them are Democrats.
Right.
And I take no joy in that. I think it's horrible because there's going to be cases where you're not going to know the difference. You're going to see a name, and there won't be anything even like Summers that gives you a little hint. Just be a name. He came to 3 dinners at his house.
Right. Right.
So that is what has been the real problem here from the beginning, and not Trump or any pals involved in it. So I guess we should go over for everyone here, because we did it, I think, in the first show, that the very, very poor investigation of the attempted assassination of Trump is finally coming to the fore. And thanks to the article yesterday by Miranda Devine, she's really blown open the entire investigation.
Right.
There are more questions about this investigation than answers. Felt that way about the second one too. When the trial ended, I knew nothing about this guy. I mean, why? Nobody would tell me why he went to Ukraine. I just can't believe there's a coincidence. The guy who tries to kill Trump goes to the Ukraine shortly before. I don't get it. Why you don't answer the question? What happened in Ukraine? What did he do there? He said he was fighting. He wanted to fight for the Ukrainians, but the Ukrainians didn't want him. First of all, I think Ukrainians would have taken anybody. God bless them, but they were being attacked. Second, there's no corroboration of that.
Right.
Yeah. Doesn't somebody go over and interview people in the
Right.
Well, that's the other one. This one is absurd. This guy, who we were led to believe under oath by the head of the FBI and his deputy, had no really meaningful online history that would be any more clear than he was anti-Semitic and something else very general. It turns out that the guy was prolific on the intermail as a pervert, a hater, and an avowed assassin. All the things that would have led to pulling him and investigating him if anybody had an interest in protecting the life of public officials. And this is what they do. This is what they used to do. He basically wrote things on the internet, which for law enforcement, it would be like a marquee, not on Broadway where there are 1,000 of them, so you might miss it, but in like an empty town, and it has a big marquee as big as Radio City Music Hall, and it says, "I want to murder politicians. I hate Donald Trump. I always believed being patriotic was lining up a bunch of socialist Jews and bashing their useless brains out with an AR." That was 2019. That was on YouTube. That was on YouTube. He wants to blow their brains out. He was having real trouble with pronouns, they, them. He's got a group of videos of, well, shall we show them? We didn't show them to this audience, right?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, as a group of videos. These videos were available to the FBI. And well, first let's look at the first one. Shows you where he was and where Trump was. It's about as good an illustration. Well, you're going to need this.
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Well, I will. While you're doing that, I will explain that the FBI monitors this, right? Monitors social networks for indications of criminality. They certainly do it in great detail for protection of the president. And there is a law that makes it a crime to threaten the president. It's not a crime to threaten you or me. That would be a violation of the First Amendment, really. But it's a crime to threaten the president. And therefore, under that law, the rule in the Justice Department, varying rule was, if there's any ambiguity about a threat on the president, the ambiguity is resolved in favor of the fact that it's serious. It would have to be some crazy nut running around saying, "I'm going to kill Trump, I'm going to kill Trump, I'm going to kill Trump." Even that you'd probably interview. Now, I have seen so many situations where the Secret Service during the Trump era did not do that, including, we can go through it on another time, but including right before January 6th, where there were indications online and in speeches they want to take him out of the White House. But in any event, there you see Butler County, and you see the president giving a speech before it happened. And I don't know how clear that is, but if you look at it clearly, let me get that out of the way here. Get that out of the way. Is that clear enough up there with the red? Yeah. You see the circle in red?
Yep.
The circle in red is the assassin. Do you notice he's all alone? Do you know people were warning? Because that looked, I mean, what does that look like? Before he shot, what does it look like?
Yeah. Right.
Does it also look like nobody's up there? I don't know. If you were just using your common sense and you had a place, Secret Service and police around in different places, would you just leave them all on the ground so they couldn't see anything? Or would you put them up in high places? Would you also go around it and look at where do you get a shot at the president and put people there? But what I'm describing to you is, of course, normal Secret Service procedure, which I know really, really well, because I handled the arrest of John Hinckley and the after report, and I was responsible for the protection of two presidents for 8 years when they came to New York. So I'm not talking about something I don't know about. This isn't me just speculating. I'm telling you that I can go through Butler County with you, and I can say without fear of contradiction, including the preparation for it when they pulled agents out, and the fact that I'm absolutely certain that some of the agents put in there were from Homeland Security and not not trained Secret Service agents. I can tell you that this would be a report that would be much better written as what do they do right, because it'd be very short. It's mostly what they did wrong. And from the very beginning, from the moment they pulled him up after he was shot and left his head out as a very obvious, easy target, when they're supposed to cover his body at all times, I said, what the F is going on? What is this about? I have been massively suspicious about this from the moment I saw it. You know that because we were in a restaurant.
Yep.
And we started watching it. And we got out of the restaurant. We were in a restaurant in Connecticut. And we came out and we started looking at it online. And what was the first thing I said? What the hell are they doing with his head?
Right.
When he went down, you're supposed to bring him up covered. That's what it means. Take a bullet for him. They let him put his head out again later when he was at the car. Now that one I would imagine would be hard to stop.
Yeah.
First one wasn't because he was in a state of shock. You could have gotten control of him.
Yep.
Now, might he have popped out once and do that thing? He might have once, but it isn't that alone. It's when he first comes up, this is what you see. And you see these little short people in front of him. And then you see the female, trying to put the gun back in her holster so she can help with two hands and she can't get it in. And I'm saying, this is not a trained Secret Service agent.
Right.
Nobody's ever identified her. I want to know where she came from. Now, why does that become important? Was it just an economic thing, whatever? Because this guy had a record of 5 or 6 years of the most provocative, threatening things online that would have marked him down as a suspect, which would have made that area an area where you would have taken extra precautions because you're in the area of a guy who is obsessed on doing an assassination. They also might have responded in less than 45 minutes to the police saying there's a guy walking around with a gun. And even if they didn't know about this online stuff, when the police gave them that report, that should have stopped the event until that report was resolved. Those are all rules, I'm telling you. There's a threat on the president. Until it's resolved, the event doesn't go forward. Meaning you got the guy, you got him in custody, and you found out it was a mistake. That makes sense, right? I mean, I think some of the things I'm telling you just makes sense. So none of that happened. Plus, they had the opportunity for well over a year to observe these kinds of things online by him. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of things online equivalent to this, some not as bad, some worse, including direct statements that he wanted to kill people, that he hated Trump, that Trump was a racist. That comment that he was a racist was, I think, that may have been in 2020 when he flipped pro-Trump up until 2020. Wanted to kill the Democrats. 2020 on, he wanted to kill Trump. All throughout, he's a furry. Didn't know what a furry was until the killer of Charlie Kirk, who was a furry. It's not funny. A furry is clearly a mental illness. A person thinks they're an animal. And then it almost always involves sexual deviance. So here's a picture that he had online, and it's entitled "Killing Pedophiles." So I assume those two guys on the ground were shot by the guy in the middle. This was on DeviantArt. So you see that, right? And you see this one. This was June 10, 2023, about 1 month about 1 year before he killed him. You see that? That doesn't get triggered online for you to see? Of course it does. You don't pay attention to it.
Right.
And then you see that one. Well, I guess that's the same one, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's the same one. Lost his eye. Takes out somebody's eye. And then we have this one, which gives you an idea of his sexual issues, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Right. Well,
nothing is done about it. Not inquired about, as far as we know, unless they're lying.
that's right, Mayor. And we'll come back. Of course, we'll be following this. And of course, the mayor has called for a new investigation.
And we'll have Miranda Devine on because she collected these facts, plus plenty more that were ignored deliberately by the FBI. And meanwhile, they've been covering up, complying since Chris Wray, and it continues today, which is completely. I don't understand why they're not just putting everything out.
Right. That's right, Mayor. So now we're going to shift gears a little. We have a very special guest, Dr. Waleed Phares. Of course, he is the former policy advisor to President Donald Trump and the author of the great book, The War of Ideas, and a friend of the mayor. Without further ado, Dr. Waleed Phares.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. You must have had a very busy day. I saw you any number of times on television, and you were eloquent, as usual.
Thank you.
And you were very helpful in explaining an extraordinarily complex thing. So many people are upset that the president met with the Crown Prince. On the other hand, the Saudi Arabia and the Crown Prince are vital to our being able to bring about a really permanent peace in the Middle East if they would join the Abraham Accords.
Mm-hmm.
And our relationship with Saudi Arabia is in many ways vital to not only our defense, but the defense of Israel. At the same time, there are these allegations that the Saudis participated in 9/11. Now, how old was Mohammed bin Salman when that happened, Waleed?
Probably teenager.
Yeah.
If he's 40 now, he must have been like 18 at the time, or maybe 17. And he has nothing to do with the previous generations. Actually, one of these generations tried to bring him down. They were influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood. These are the guys who were using Saudi Arabia against its enemies, and we were the enemies. I mean, your role is historic on 9/11, but those who perpetrated were trained by the Muslim Brotherhood, who have penetrated Saudi Arabia. But MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, has been fighting against them to a point they tried in 2018 to bring him down. So
a lot of people don't know this, but the a visitor from the royal family after September 11, to whom I gave back a $10 million check because he said that the attack was due to Israel and the United States. He was imprisoned by Mohammed bin Salman.
Oh yeah,
for being a liar and a crook. Not necessarily for that, but several years later, he was in prison as an enemy. He was an enemy of. So I mean, people. I know. Look, I sympathize with them tremendously. I immediately would have that feeling too, but you got to think through it a little bit. And the most important thing is we got to bring peace to that region so this never happens again.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the best question of the long day I had, so that the public, Mayor, understands the choices of Donald Trump. They're not light. It's not just about contracts only with companies and billions and $1 trillion. Of course, he's the best president to explain it to the American public, but it's a strategic choice. Our choice in the Middle East, and you've said it many, many times, is peace with strength, which means we've got to be the allies of Israel. We've got to gather those Arabs who are anti-jihadist. That's the new measure. And he is anti-jihadist, and the UAE is anti-jihadist. Bahrain, Egypt, even Egypt, that
Yes.
went against the Muslim Brotherhood. So our public needs to understand that the new confrontation is different. The United States, Israel, Arab moderates, the Iranian opposition, whom you know very well, that's the coalition which is going to bring back peace and freedom in the region.
What are the chances of, obviously, the president's goal is Abraham Accord, and what's the chances of Saudi Arabia? It seems it'd be very hard for him to do that, because even internally, we talk about the street in Saudi Arabia, and he could really jeopardize. He could jeopardize the royal family. He could jeopardize running Saudi Arabia.
You are so right. The Ikhwan, the jihadists in Saudi Arabia, are waiting for him. They waited a couple years after the president went to see them in Riyadh, if you recall, May 2017, when President Trump, our president, told all these 50 leaders of the Arab and Muslim world, go drive them out to the jihadists, go after the regime in Iran. We still have the video right now. It's very important. And he told them, I'm going to be destroying ISIS for you. So he was on the offensive. And that was understood by the Muslim Brotherhood inside and the jihadists inside Saudi Arabia, that if Mohammed bin Salman continues to be the king or the crown prince, it's going to be a disaster for them. So he is our ally at this point in time. And we need him because he is the one who has enough legitimacy to break the backbone of the jihadists. He's the one.
So what has to take place to get to an Abraham Accord between Israel and Saudi Arabia?
I have suggested already, it's after October 7, that Hamas has to be replaced. There is no game here. I mean, all those are saying, okay, ceasefire, we discuss with Hamas. With Hamas, we don't discuss anything. These are the Nazis of the jihadists of modern time. But then you have to replace them. You have to replace them with leaders like allies to MBS, allies to MBZ, Mohammed bin Zayed of the UAE, allies to Sisi, the president of Egypt. And there are plenty. We have so many videos, Mayor, about demonstrations by youth inside Gaza against Hamas. So now the skill, with the help of these Arab moderates, is to replace them. And where do we start? Now there are two Gazas. Eastern Gaza are where the Israelis are. That's the result of the 20 points that President Trump has advanced. First withdrawal of the Israelis, fine, they're going to stay there. The other Gaza is still ruled by Hamas, and they're not given any sign that they want to relent, to change. So we formed this opposition force by the Gazans, and many of whom are now living in the Gulf, in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And we do like de Gaulle. De Gaulle, gathered 3 French forces, and when the Allies landed in Normandy, he formed a new government. So basically what we need to have is a new free Gaza government whose youth have already fought Hamas. We need a skillful leader to do that thing MBS, MBZ, and their allies, including among Palestinians, can deliver.
And would that have to precede? Would that have to precede his being able to join an Arab Accord, or would that come after?
It's going to go, I'll give you a piece, you give me a piece. Meaning, at this point in time, if there is a declaration, and it happened, right? Yesterday, the United Nations Security Council gave President Trump the right to form an international force. This is a miracle, because Russia over Ukraine has not collaborated with Trump. But on this one, very strangely, they did. They abstained. They didn't say anything. Okay, you could do whatever you want, because Russia has a problem with its own jihadists. So they don't want to strengthen Hamas too much, because that would be in Chechnya and elsewhere, after years. So now we'll have a little window where we can do that. But Saudi Arabia, if the prince says, I am now ordering or I am encouraging Palestinian civil society to go against Hamas, and this is our forces, we will cooperate with the Israelis. Today, what he said at the White House, at the White House was stunning. He said, "I am with the Abraham Accord." He never said it before.
Yeah, I thought he was going to say something very diplomatic, very well. It's something I'll consider. It's down the road. That's something we're aiming for. It was a much more definitive statement, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. He felt at home. He felt he's now, let me say it clearly, protected by Trump. And let me say why. Because all of what's happening now should have happened in 2021 had President Trump been reelected normally.
Yeah, it would have happened.
It would have happened. And on first year, meaning what's happening now must have happened, should have happened in 2021 during that year. Instead, what happened under the Biden administration? They went after Saudi Arabia. And
yeah, they actually went to the other extreme.
Yes, to the other extreme.
They accused him of murder.
Yes.
They wanted to prosecute him for murder.
Yes.
And then he decided, I mean, they sort of pulled out and almost had to go a little bit in the direction of Iran to protect themselves.
They had to sign an agreement, like put the nose like this with Iran to stop them, because they were not protected by the United States. So they had to keep distances, and then they went and did this signing with China. They needed an international power, so on and so forth, because those who took over here were the Obama-Biden people.
I'm sure you know this better than anyone. They were complaining behind their backs that they had to do this.
Yes, absolutely.
And as soon as Trump came in, they embraced him like daddy returned.
Oh, I like that expression. And in a
Daddy,
short,
Daddy, you're here.
yeah, Daddy, finally you're here. Maybe the difference of age, confused the MBS for maybe he thought he liked the presence of Trump. Trump is strong, and then reassured him and told him, "I have toys for you." Those F-35. He felt reassured.
Yeah. Did they also do it? I think tomorrow they're going to try to put together a defense agreement too, like so that he will have the assurance that if somebody should come against him there, we would protect him.
Exactly, that's the point. They gave him the status of a non-official member of NATO with all the benefits. What would that mean? Article 5. If he is attacked, if Saudi Arabia is attacked, we will be with them. And with us, we will have Egypt, we will have the other members of the Accord, and Israel. Yeah,
that would make a very, very big. That would make a very, very big difference. And you could see, not immediately, but you could see over a 5 or 10 year period how that could solve all of the problems.
I think less than that, Mayor. You're giving them, of course, a lot of time. I think within half a decade, 5 years.
Like that, yeah, because they're ready for it.
All what is needed now are two things. Number one, that the people of Iran rise. You know that better than anybody else. And they are very close.
They got to get rid of the reign of terror.
Yes, they are so close. You are in touch with the opposition. I'm in touch with the opposition. We know that they are very close.
They are closer than anybody reports. The West refuses to report it. The Western media refuses to report it.
They refuse because they have been cashing from the regime, the $150 billion. We need to focus on this. We need to investigate who spent what companies were backing the Islamic regime. What I think from a historical perspective was at the end of the 12-day war between Israel and the regime, had Israel obtained 3 more days, 4 more days, they were going after the Basij militia. And the Basij militia was starting to retreat. They were bombed by the Israelis, and they were grumbling and moving among the opposition. Now we start to see it. Now members of the armed forces of Iran, who are the regular army, weaker, are starting to show sympathy with the people against the regime. I'm very confident that forces of the Iranian regime, of the resistance, of the opposition, will eventually help the world in turning that regime down. That's number one. Number two, the Muslim Brotherhood. We congratulate Texas, finally, for designating them as a terror organization. So now let's have a race. Which other state is going to designate them? So it's not going to be a top-down. It's going to be a
right. Well, Waleed, we're going to keep, if you don't mind, checking in with you.
Yeah. I didn't know about your podcast. Now consider me as a regular with you.
We've got to do a podcast which would be a complete background, okay?
Yes, because full background. I'm ready for it.
People need to understand this really, really, really well. And it is, look, let's face it, it is complicated.
It is very complicated.
And you need a lot of history and background in it. And this is why I think he's even more successful in his second term than in there was a lot for him to learn. I mean, he learned it quickly. But
on the job, there was a coup prepared against him.
Oh, of
And
course, yeah.
and
I
he
mean,
survived it, and then he's back. And once he's wounded, he learned the whole process.
he sure did. And
Yeah.
you know it anyway. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
God
Mate.
bless.
God
Great
bless.
job today, by the way. He was, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but he was on television all day. Everybody is calling him to find out what's going on. And you can see why. I mean, this is years and years of experience. all
Well, he
throughout the
certainly
Middle
is a encyclopedia.
So he is. Yeah.
On,
It's an
this stuff.
encyclopedia of knowledge. It would take you days to go research and find out,
Right,
what
but
he's going to
it's-
tell you.
But these are the
Plus, he'll
people.
also, if you want, and we'll do this with the podcast, we'll get a little bibliography. He'll give you some books to read, so that you can go into a little more background. And to analyze these things, you need to be a really conscientious. You need to be a student and a diplomat, which is whether you agree with him or not, or whether you even think that Henry Kissinger got us into some of the trouble we're in, or got us out of some of the trouble we're in.
Right.
The thing that Henry Kissinger was a great scholar and also a diplomat.
Right.
So if you read Henry Kissinger's books, even when you end up disagreeing with his conclusion, his books are almost history books as opposed to books of diplomacy. So when he begins describing the Middle East, he'll go back and tell you the ancient history of the Middle East,
Right.
and how these things formed. I mean, now most people wouldn't know. He said it very quickly that Hamas is an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is opposed to the government of Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood killed Sadat, who was the president of Egypt who made peace with Israel. They assassinated him. And they also took out the last president of Egypt before this one, and then took over with the help of Barack Hussein Obama. They put the terrorists in. Well, why is that unusual? He gave cash to the Ayatollah, who's the biggest terrorist in the Middle East. I'm not going to tell you why. I'm not sure I know why. I'm just going to tell you it happened. Then you figure out why. So it's extraordinarily complicated. I feel extraordinarily bad for the 9/11 families. I consider myself a 9/11 family. I lost very, very close friends that were like family in 9/11. And then some of them that I didn't even know have become family now. And, but I do know that the fact that 15 of them were Saudi Arabian does not reflect the position of the country of Saudi Arabia in what happened. I do not know, but I don't reject the fact that they supplied money to bin Laden. But I have not seen any proof that they supplied money to bin Laden with knowledge he was going to use it for an attack on the United States. I would seriously doubt they would have done that because they depend on the United States for too much. And if they did it, it would have been renegades within the royal family, not the royal family, not this guy. First of all, he was too young, but not his father and his line within the royal family. His whole objective from the day he took over was to modernize them and to see, and to, even before Trump came along, to see if they could get to becoming a country that isn't as dependent on oil. They don't want to be Russia. They don't want to be a one-trick pony. I mean, Russia is suffering tremendously now because the price of oil is going down. If it goes down anymore, they won't be able to eat. They don't have anything else. And that's why Trump is putting on so much pressure, like even with Hungary and a couple of the Europe, cut off everything. I mean, but if you're down to doing business with Hungary and Slovakia, I mean, they got to do billions and billions of dollars worth of business. And they are down to doing business with a few countries, some sneak business, which is never going to take care of their huge economy. And I believe, although there's a dispute about this, so I can't assert it as a fact. So I'll assert it as a question. There's a question as to how much China is supporting them now. China does not like to be tied up with a loser. Although it appears as if they won in Ukraine From China's point of view, they lost. They were supposed to take all of Ukraine. They're supposed to do it quickly. It wasn't supposed to cost any money. Well, it cost a huge amount of money. Their army has been proven to be feckless. I mean, can you imagine if we had, I mean, how long did it take us to take Iraq? Now we did the occupation wrong, but both times we attacked Iraq, it was like, okay, we're in, it's over, right? And I'm not sure Ukraine was as prepared for war as Iraq was. So we'll have to see how this all comes out. So a couple of other things before we sign off for the evening, because we are well into overtime. Comey is trying to sneak out of his indictment because the grand jury was handled incorrectly, he says. And it's a question of timing. The U.S. attorney had to present a redrafted indictment because they didn't indict on one count. And the way they counted, she didn't have enough time to do it. Well, I mean, I've done this 100 times when that has to be done. There are many times in which my assistants or I would authorize several different indictments because we knew the grand jury would have trouble with this count or that count or some other count. Or we had a recommendation of counts we didn't want them to vote on, but we didn't want them to vote for. We wanted to give them the opportunity to make the decision. So we had 3 or 4 versions of the indictment. So you do know that the indictment in Georgia that charges President Trump and I and Mark Meadows and Dr. Eastman and with felonies, when it was returned, Fannie the Hoe didn't sign it. And they put it out for an hour. It wasn't an indictment. They then took it back and they spent the entire day rewriting it. And it came back as the same indictment signed. I don't know. They could have just come right back with it. But that started off with an indictment that was signed, wasn't even properly presented to Fannie must have been involved with other things with her boyfriend rather than concentrating on signing, probably hiding the cash.
Yeah, he talked to you.
Oh yeah, she talked to me. She was very cordial when I went before the grand jury. She insisted on meeting me because I was
her lover.
Her lover.
Wade.
I didn't
know
that Nathan was her lover.
At the time you didn't.
I didn't. I did question with my lawyer, Bob Costello, what kind of nitwit she was using to do the grand jury. He didn't seem to know how to ask questions. I was straightening out his questions and then answering them. And then I found out later, of course, that he had no experience, not only as a criminal lawyer, but as a litigator. I don't even think as a lawyer. He certainly had some other experience that she was counting on. She also impaneled 2 grand juries. I've never heard of that. The one I was in front of was going to make a recommendation, but not indict. So that it had to all be represented, which I then figured out very easily when I found out about the corruption. This was a way of maximizing the amount of money they could get. Plus, he kept running down to the White House to talk about the case, and then they wanted to say it wasn't coordinated with Biden. Of course, it was. And finally, you know, the counts involving the alternate electors have been dropped, and I don't remember the grounds in Georgia, but they were a little kind of squishy because the judge is kind of squishy. He doesn't have the case anymore, but even when he had the case, I was willing to say it. He worked for her.
Right. Yeah.
Now the case is down to half of what it was. It's been given to another prosecutor who has to decide whether to prosecute it. And let's hope this prosecutor doesn't have a boyfriend or likes to go on cruises or is part of the unbelievably corrupt Fulton County, where it would be really hard to find somebody honest to look this over. I mean, this would be a professional search to find an honest judge there. You know, there's an organized crime boxing case going on, Ted, with all this stuff. with all this stuff involving baseball and all this stuff involving basketball. Of course, boxing has to be involved.
We got a new boxing scandal.
But, I don't know if this is organized crime or not. The case is on trial in front of Judge Azraq in the Eastern District of New York, Judge Joan Azraq. And it's a case in which there was a deliberate attempt to blow a fight. And they describe it as mob connected. They tried, but in the middle of the trial that started, some mob guy was caught offering $100,000 to a juror to find Goran Gojic, who was the boxer on trial, innocent. But he got caught. They must have wired up the grand juror, and the grand juror caught the briber. So the judge had to declare a mistrial, right? This is a case in which 3 Staten Island guys, Mustafa Fetcha, Kalmar Krasnicki, and Afrim Kupa. Couldn't have easy names, right? They are being charged with jury tampering. And the trial revolves around one of the biggest cocaine busts in U.S. history. And it's going to reconvene in 30 days. And this time she's going to do what we had to do with a lot of our juries in the mafia cases, and the Eastern District had to do with theirs. But I guess they didn't figure that these people were that as dangerous. And that is, you have an anonymous jury and they remain partially sequestered, which is a heck of a burden on the jury, particularly at Christmas time. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how many juries John Gotti fixed in the Eastern District.
Really?
Before they got him.
How would you do that?
3 in a row.
How?
Reach a juror.
You'd find out who they were?
Yeah.
Was that not super difficult?
Yeah, but I mean, now you have 4 juries. You got 4 jury tampering cases, and the original RICO case and another case. I mean, the jury tampering sort of got folded in with the sentencing on when they finally convicted him. Mm-hmm. But it's very tough. I mean, to have a lot of people don't want to serve on an organized crime grand jury. Mm-hmm. Not unheard of that they kill people. Kill enough, and you go down to 11 jurors, and you got to start all over again. That's why you have sometimes like 6 or 8 alternates on a jury like this. So the defendant, Afrim Kupa, is caught on a covert recording offering a 6-figure bribe. And they believe the money comes from a combination of the Albanian mob and the Gambino crime family. Now, that's not unusual. Albanians and the mafia were working together since the 70s. Remember, they're right across the Adriatic from each other. Some of the Italian restaurants in New York that are the very best are run by Albanians who claim to be Italians, unless you get to know them. I used to get to know them. Mm-hmm. And they're very good. I mean, because they're not Italian ethnically, but they're Italian culturally in many ways. Certainly the western part of Albania is. Mm-hmm. And Albanian organized crime is small, and not as well, maybe now it's as organized as the mafia, but it was small in comparison to the mafia, but vicious as hell. Mm-hmm. Wow. And when the mafia has all this vendetta killing, Albania, it's a religion. They got vendettas going back so far. I don't think Albania was even there when they started. So I think we've covered all the most important things. Mm-hmm. We did want to go into a little analysis of Obamacare and what can be done about it, which we will do tomorrow. Did we show Trump at MacD's last night?
Not this. No.
Do we have it?
We can play a clip from President Trump at McDonald's.
I would like that. It shows what a regular guy he is.
Have you ever had the Filet-O-Fish, Mayor? Are you familiar with the Filet-O-Fish at McDonald's?
No.
I mean, look, even people that don't eat McDonald's, some will know about the filet-o-fish during Lent.
Oh,
Because on Fridays, right? But let's play a clip. This is President Trump. One of his favorite meals at McDonald's, of course, is
filet-o-fish.
the filet-o-fish.
When I was with him, it was hamburgers.
Well, he may have had some filet-o-fishes in there, but of course, that's not.
I never saw him with a filet-o-fish in my life.
Really?
I don't think I've ever seen him with a fish.
It looks similar to a hamburger. But here we go. Here's President Trump on the filet-o-fish.
Happy family sitting down to a really great meal. Because no matter who you are, everyone loves something at McDonald's. There's always something to have. I like the fish. I like it. You could do a little bit more tartar sauce, though, please. Seriously. I hate when I said, "Do you have any tartar sauce?" Do you understand that? Yes, I had. You understand that? Doing honest, beautiful, hard work, and happy.
But like you said, he's a regular guy. Anyone that's a frequent visitor to McDonald's knows that, yeah, they could put a little bit more tartar sauce.
Well, I don't go to McDonald's as much, so I don't know about filet-o-fish.
That's good.
I do know about their hamburgers, however. So the Epstein file, now Senate, House have voted on it. It's gone to the president. Has he signed it tonight, or do we know?
I'm looking, and I'm not.
It'll be signed by tomorrow. So it's unfortunate. Please be careful in reading it. Far be it from me to protect any of these people who might have been engaged in pedophilia. My God. But also, it's like this is like a horrible situation. There'll be people on there that didn't do anything wrong, because the guy very effectively led two lives. There's going to be people from both sides of his life. They weren't like, he didn't have like a little club of just the people who were pedophiles. Maybe he did. Maybe he did in his head, or in a journal or book that we haven't gotten or seen. But at least from what you're going to get, you're just going to have the people that were with him at dinners, etc. Of course, it starts to get more suspicious if they're on the plane going to the island. But then again, not definitive. There were trips to the island where everything was maybe to calm down the rumors. This was an enormously multi-layered evil individual.
Right.
And the problem is you're going to not be able to separate the good from the bad that easily. I don't think. Maybe there will be indications that make it clear who are more involved than others. We'll see. But I don't think so. And I think that had a lot to do with the debate over releasing this thing. The president of Mexico, Sheinbaum, is all upset that the president is bombing the Venezuelan boats and Colombian that are sending fentanyl to us. I'm very excited that they are, because each boat that blows up, I see a couple of thousand young people that are going to live. Because this is almost like a war that China is carrying on with us. They're using Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia to execute it for them. They send this fentanyl and now new, more even more deadly substances into the United States. And China gets to kill us without having a war against us. So we don't get to kill them back. But if they went to war against us, we'd be striking back. But here we are, like sitting ducks, like we were during the pandemic, which I assure you came from China. I don't say they deliberately developed the crazy experiment that they did for that purpose. And I'm not saying they didn't. I'm saying I don't have any evidence that it was done purposefully as a biological attack. But I have been certain from the day we interviewed, and Dr. Maria will remember this better because she interviewed her. The day we interviewed the scientist that was brought over from China, who Steve Bannon sent to us because she was going to go on, believe it or not, Tucker Carlson. And she was nervous to go on television. And we spent a long time with her. And she explained the whole thing to us. And I had pretty much figured this was true, but she right out of her mouth. And she believes it was deliberate because the Wuhan lab was run by the military. All labs in China are run by the military. And it was very, very sloppy, very negligent. The UK had pulled out because it was so negligent a year earlier. So it makes sense to me that it's slipped out. All of a sudden, within several months, they've got a catastrophic group of deaths in China. And China makes the decision that atheistic communist murderers would make with no regard for human life, which is send their people all around the world to infect the entire world so that China isn't at a disadvantage. Now, that's an act of war.
Right.
I don't know that we should treat it as an act of war because with nuclear weapons involved, we sure as hell should make China pay for it, which we're not. We're covering it up.
Right. Well, Mayor, Republican efforts, we, of course, discussed the Virgin Islands delegate Stacey Plaskett, who was a non-voting member of Congress and who was found to have been communicating with disgraced financier, we're calling him, I guess, Jeffrey Epstein. But Republican efforts to censure her failed after 3 Republicans voted against it and 3 additional members voted present. Therefore, the final vote being 209 to 214, the censure fails. And that is due to 6 Republicans, 3 of which who voted with the Democrats against it. Don Bacon.
So they're willing to slander all these people whose names they're going to release. But they won't hold accountable a sneaky representative
Right.
who's taking questions on the phone, prompting her from a pedophile.
Right.
At the time, a convicted pedophile acknowledged as such.
Right. Isn't that amazing?
And not disclosing it to people because they approve of sneaky conduct
Right.
with pedophiles.
You got to wonder. What's the purpose of not going along?
Who were our Republicans that did it? Are they in the Epstein file?
So the Republicans who voted with the Democrats, Don Bacon, Nebraska, I think he's constantly voting with the Democrats, Lance Gooden of Texas, and Dave Joyce of Ohio. Let's see if any of them are running for re-election. And then Republicans who voted present, Andrew Garbarino of New York.
Oh, God almighty.
You know him?
Yeah. Rhino.
Jay Obernolte of California, and Dan Muser of Pennsylvania. That surprises me. So let's see if there's, I want to see the reasons for the no vote.
We'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell everyone to have a wonderful evening, to pray for the people of Ukraine and to pray for the people of Israel and the people of Iran. You heard the news that we tell you all the time. And then, of course, we have people from the MEK on that the chances of an overthrow in Iran are not all that far. First of all, the time of the overthrow is not all that far away, and the chances of it's happening is pretty good. And of course, we'll go into any time when we have information about that. We'll go into greater detail on that.
Right.
But it's all being helped by what's going on now. So pray for the people of Iran. They've been subjugated to the most horrible situations. You should pray for the people of China too. It's not the people of China who are causing this. It's the atheistic, communistic, homicidal, insane CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, that has killed, in everyone's estimation, more of their own people than any organization in human history. Chinese communism has destroyed more of their own people than they have any other group or we can't think of a country in the history of the world that killed as many of its own people. As many could get you as high as 100 million. Of course, that's less than 10% of the population, but that's still a lot, 10% of the population. And of course, that fear infects the rest. And it's probably a low number because that's what they can count. You don't count all those little babies that were killed.
Right.
And pray for the president. He's handling so many things at once and doing it so well. And so much of it needs your guidance and assistance. So thank you, God. We'll see you tomorrow night on Lindell TV at 7 and America's Mayor Live at 8. And don't forget to check out our podcast on Subscribe with Michael Francis. It's excellent. I think you'll enjoy it, and you'll be looking forward to the second edition that'll be coming out pretty soon. God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply